The echo of destiny, why this connection refuses to fade. You're constantly caught in a loop of questioning. Why this person, specifically? Why does this unshakable pull exist? This feeling you can't quite rationalize or categorize. You've genuinely made every effort to move forward. You've tried to quiet the persistent mental chatter. You've tried to distract your emotional center. And you've exhausted every means of moving on with your life. And yet here you are, being drawn back time and time again. This isn't the fleeting nature of an obsession or a mere fantasy you've conjured up. It's something infinitely deeper, something you feel in the core of your being that feels genuinely sacred. Today, we're going to step into the clarity that will finally explain this profound mystery. The divine whisper. Recognizing guided love, there comes an absolutely undeniable moment in the life of every person who feels a deeper calling, a chosen one, when the experience of love ceases to feel like a random series of events and begins to feel profoundly guided. It's when an inner voice, a whisper from your soul, speaks the truth your logical mind has been desperately trying to silence. A particular face, a tone of voice, a distinct presence. It simply refuses to be forgotten, no matter how much conscious effort you put into erasing it. This quiet, persistent tension, sitting between your deep-seated desires and your constant doubts, is the first indication that this connection was not an accident. That person's arrival wasn't a matter of chance. A force far greater than mere coincidence has been attempting to communicate with you through the very emotions you've struggled to push away. You've certainly done the self-doubt dance. You've scrutinized your feelings, pushed them out of your awareness, and desperately wondered if this was all just a blend of wishful thinking, unhealthy attachment, or simple hope disguised cleverly as genuine intuition. Nevertheless, the spiritual pull persists, often returning with a force that's even stronger than before. This continued presence is often because a divine hand has been working tirelessly beneath the surface, preparing two hearts that weren't quite synchronized in their readiness. This power has been mending old wounds in both of you that would have otherwise jeopardized something so precious and sacred. It's been preparing both individuals for a deep, authentic bond that transcends simple romantic feelings, that's bigger than perfect timing, and is more impactful than anything you've ever experienced. As you continue to listen to this message today, a profound sense of clarity will begin to dawn within you, explaining perfectly why your spiritual self instantly recognizes a profound truth that your analytical mind is still struggling to grasp. In this discussion, we are going to meticulously uncover 7 powerful divine confirmations that a higher power uses to reveal when a connection isn't merely born of human emotion or human longing, but is truly heaven, sent, purpose-driven, and was intentionally woven into the tapestry of your life journey long before you ever consciously realized it. If this message is already resonating deeply and stirring something foundational within your spirit, take a moment to acknowledge that feeling. Hit the like button on this video, consider subscribing if you haven't yet, and type out 99 in the comments. In biblical numerology, the number 99 often symbolizes the very moment just before the completion of a cycle, the final essential step before a long-awaited promise fully manifests. Today, you are courageously stepping into that very moment of revelation. The very first and most telling proof is a deep, utterly unexplainable peace that settles over you whenever you contemplate this person. This particular kind of peace is one that you can't possibly fake, force into existence, or manufacture through sheer will. It doesn't arise simply from surface-level comfort, electric chemistry, or sheer familiarity. This profound inner calm is a gift from the divine, and it only appears when a specific connection carries a significant spiritual assignment. When you're engaging with a genuine divine partner, this peace completely and almost startlingly replaces any internal confusion. It truly doesn't matter if the two of you aren't actively speaking right now. It is irrelevant if there are unresolved questions or complicated circumstances clouding the situation from an external perspective. Something deep within your spirit settles when thoughts of this person arise. This isn't because the external conditions are perfect. It's because your soul has already recognized a profound truth that your conscious mind simply hasn't processed yet. This peace acts strangely. It doesn't behave like typical, fleeting human emotion. It emerges most clearly when you least expect it, often when you're completely exhausted from hoping, actively trying to let go, or fully convinced you've moved on with your life. Yet, in the quietest hours of your day, a feeling that is soft, remarkably steady, and absolutely unmistakable arises within your core. It's almost like receiving a gentle, persistent reassurance. There is much more to this. Don't rush the process. Don't give in to fear. Just listen closely. That deep sense of calm isn't a mere memory replaying. It is neither simple nostalgia nor yearning. It is a genuine spiritual recognition, the type that doesn't scream for attention, but instead gently echoes through your being. What makes this particular sign so incredibly powerful is that this specific piece is the signature of the divine. Chaos is never the voice of a higher power. Whenever a higher intelligence marks something as an integral part of your destiny, it surrounds that thing with a supernatural calm that instantly overrides all logical objections. Even when your mind dictates, this simply doesn't make any sense. Your spirit responds with quiet certainty, but it absolutely feels right. This is the identical peace that calms your deep, seated insecurities, the very same tranquility that silences your fear of being wounded again, and the calm that allows you to breathe easy in moments when anxiety should logically dominate. It feels akin to standing perfectly centered in the middle of a massive storm and realizing with sudden certainty that the winds cannot actually touch you. Deep down, you feel profoundly protected, guided, and ultimately watched over. Pay very close attention to this key detail. This peace does not disappear as physical distance grows. It doesn't fade into the background during periods of silence. It doesn't crumble even when you temporarily doubt yourself. It simply stays. It waits patiently. It securely holds you. That is the fundamental way you know this is not merely emotional. It is divine. When a higher power is actively preparing a partner for a chosen one, it plants within that person a seed of peace that absolutely refuses to perish, because it is intrinsically connected to a future that this higher power already sees, even if it remains invisible to you right now. However, the mystery deepens even further here. Sometimes that profound peace noticeably increases right before a significant life event is about to occur. It is the divine's subtle way of communicating, remain anchored. Something truly important is approaching. If you felt that quiet certainty growing more intense lately, almost as if the very atmosphere around you is subtly shifting, then you must pay close attention. The next confirmation will resonate even deeper and fully explain why this distinct peace has been following you so relentlessly. When a connection is strictly human and rooted in the physical world, it eventually begins to dissolve. Time gradually weakens its intensity. Distance ultimately erases the memory. New life circumstances easily replace it. But when a connection is genuinely divine, something fundamentally different occurs. The more vigorously you attempt to silence it, the louder and clearer it becomes. You didn't consciously choose to feel this. It decidedly chose you. It's not a fixation, it's not emotional dependence, and it's not a fantasy disguised as raw hope. It is divine persistence, a spiritual pull that doesn't seek your conscious permission, a memory that staunchly refuses to fade, a sense of presence that keeps knocking softly on your heart long after your logical mind attempted to lock the door. These persistent thoughts are not chaotic or tormenting. They arrive more like gentle, unexpected waves, sudden, soft, and usually when you are least prepared for them. They surface right in the middle of your busy day while you are deeply distracted, completely convinced you have finally moved on. And yet there they are again, a small moment, a specific detail, a feeling, A sudden flash of connection that serves as a quiet reminder that whatever was between you two was never intended to be temporary. The most unusual aspect of these thoughts is that they don't leave you feeling drained or exhausted. They actually stabilize you. They feel far more like necessary reminders than disruptive interruptions. They come across as gentle whispers, not overwhelming noise. It is almost as if heaven itself is trying to subtly nudge you back towards something your ultimate destiny still deeply requires. This is the stage where many people, especially those feeling a divine call, become utterly confused. They wonder, if this was truly from a higher power, why didn't it successfully work out the first time? But truly divine stories rarely ever unfold in straight, predictable lines. The divine isn't merely writing a simple romance. It's intricately shaping character, maturing two souls, and healing deep, ancient wounds that would have certainly destroyed the blessing had it arrived prematurely. So, instead of closing the book entirely, the chapter was simply paused. Both of you were deliberately placed in separate, necessary lanes so that each of you could grow individually in ways you never would have been capable of growing together at that time. The thoughts persist because the underlying purpose persists. The connection lingers because the spiritual assignment has not yet reached its completion. Here's the undeniable confirmation of this proof. Persistent thoughts that are truly sourced from the divine do not feel like an agonizing pressure. They feel like a subtle, growing alignment. They consistently return when an essential internal shift occurs within you. They return when you naturally level up spiritually. They return when the timing is quietly inching closer to manifestation. Sometimes, these thoughts are accompanied by a distinct, quiet expectancy, as if your spirit instinctively knows something is quickly approaching long before your external life even registers the change. This is not self-delusion, it is spiritual preparation. Perhaps the most telling and universal sign is this. Every single time you have tried to emotionally, mentally, or spiritually replace this person, nothing else has truly fit. Nothing connects with the same depth. Nothing settles your spirit with the same peace. This is because when a higher power places someone directly into your destiny, substitutes will absolutely never work. They might briefly distract you for a moment, but they cannot truly anchor you. It's like attempting to aggressively force the wrong key into a lock that only a higher power holds the original key to. And just when you believe you have finally let it all go, just when you convincingly tell yourself you are absolutely done trying to understand the complexity of it all, something will happen. A significant dream, an undeniable sign, an unexpected encounter. And suddenly, the connection resurfaces with even more profound clarity and force than ever before. That is the moment you grasp the deepest truth. This isn't simply your mind obsessively chasing someone. This is your soul refusing to abandon what the divine intentionally wrote into its fundamental blueprint. There is a powerful level of spiritual connection that absolutely no amount of silence can shatter, no physical distance can truly dilute, and no amount of fear can successfully bury. It doesn't operate through simple logic, spoken words, or physical proximity. It operates purely through the spirit, and when a higher power is the one intricately weaving this bond, something truly extraordinary begins to happen. You feel them, and they equally feel you. Even if they deny it, even if they attempt to actively bury the feeling, even if they pretend they have decisively moved on. Connections that are chosen by the divine are never, ever one-sided. They are soul-mirrored. The divine allows both hearts to intensely feel the pull, the subtle ache, the deep inner awareness, the persistent inner stirring that absolutely no external distraction can silence. This profound reflection is not solely generated by memories. It manifests through moments that powerfully strike you out of the blue. You can be going about your normal day when suddenly their name, their unique energy, or their distinct presence flashes through your spirit with a raw force you simply cannot explain. What you may not fully realize is that, on the other side, they are experiencing the exact same thing at that exact moment, with the same startling intensity. Divine connections operate in perfect synchrony, even when the two souls are physically separated by vast distances. This is not fantasy or wish fulfillment. It is resonance. Heaven is orchestrating a subtle conversation between two hearts that haven't exchanged a single word. And here is what makes this confirmation so uniquely powerful. The other person will eventually begin to feel genuinely uncomfortable with their own denial. They start sensing an inner shift, an unusual heaviness that surfaces when they try to put distance between you, and an unexplainable warmth when they allow themselves to think of you. A sudden wave of unfamiliar emotion hits them, and they are completely unprepared for it. They try desperately to dismiss it, but it keeps returning stronger, clearer, and far more insistent. This is because the divine keeps placing your name in their spirit, using the same mechanism that it places theirs in yours. They remember you vividly at unexpected times because a higher power is constantly reminding them. This spiritual reflection manifests in subtle yet noticeable ways. Their mood might shift suddenly when yours does. They may feel strangely restless on days when your soul is unsettled. They think of you intensely exactly when you are releasing some heavy emotional burden. This is not simple telepathy. It is genuine spiritual linkage. The divine doesn't connect chosen ones solely through shared emotion. It connects them through a shared purpose. And that purpose creates a powerful, unseen spiritual corridor between the two hearts, allowing them to sense each other, even when everything appears completely silent on the surface. If you've ever felt a sudden, profound wave of peace for no reason, a strange comfort as if someone is thinking of you, or a familiar warmth that hits you precisely when you were in desperate need of strength, that is not imagination. That is their spirit reaching out. That is the divine thread subtly tightening. That is a higher power communicating. You are absolutely not alone in this. They feel it too. What makes this phenomenon even more mysterious is the other person's attempts to escape it. They actively distract themselves. They keep their schedules overwhelmingly busy. They invite noise and chaos into their lives. Yet, the connection continues to rise, almost like an unstoppable tide. They might not show it externally, but something fundamental inside them is deeply waking up. And that significant awakening is the absolute beginning of the shift a higher power has been meticulously preparing for. The fourth confirmation is often one of the most challenging truths for a person on this path to fully accept, yet it contains the greatest measure of divine intelligence. The separation was necessary. When a higher power intends to unite two souls for a purpose that is far greater than simple romance, it will not rush the process. It will not force anything. It will not build on unstable, compromised foundations. The divine does not unite incomplete souls. Instead, it temporarily separates them, not as a punishment, not as a rejection, and not to end the story, but rather to refine and mature each heart in private. This essential refining is done so that the connection doesn't ultimately collapse under the immense weight of unhealed wounds, past traumas, or lingering immaturity. You might have mistakenly interpreted the distance as a definitive failure, but behind the scenes, heaven was meticulously rewriting the narrative for both of you. The separation often feels brutal because it instantly interrupts the momentum, the powerful emotion, and the deep hope. However, divine interference is not an act of sabotage, it is a spiritual surgery. A higher power carefully removes the version of you that would have unintentionally destroyed the blessing. It removes the version of them that was simply not yet capable of honoring the profound assignment they were being entrusted with. It deliberately slows the connection down so that it can ultimately speed destiny up. What felt like the painful act of losing each other was, in fact, the essential beginning of finding yourselves. The distance was not rejection, it was preparation. This is the precise point where divine timing reveals its painful yet exquisite beauty. While you were actively healing your deepest fears, they were forced to confront their own destructive patterns. While you were intentionally learning to love without a desperate attachment, they were slowly learning to deeply feel without the immediate urge to retreat and run away. While you were breaking old, detrimental generational cycles, they were discovering a mature emotional language they didn't even know they lacked. The divine was carefully shaping two separate hearts so that they would not, even unintentionally, wound and destroy each other. Timing is the divine safeguard for these chosen connections. It actively protects them from bonding prematurely and burying something truly sacred and purposeful. If you examine the past closely, you will clearly see the fingerprints of divine timing everywhere. The distance didn't occur out of deliberate cruelty. It happened at the precise moment when one of you hit an emotional wall that you were not yet equipped to communicate through. The separation began when the connection reached a depth that neither of you had the necessary internal tools to handle, and the ensuing silence started when the divine required a clear space to speak into both hearts without any external interference. The separation served as the necessary chrysalis. Each of you cocooned in your own individual battles, lessons, and awakenings, until both souls had matured enough to securely hold the magnitude of what heaven ultimately intended. But here lies the essential hidden mystery. Divine pauses are always accompanied by subtle yet powerful spiritual recalibrations. You may have noticed your entire mindset shifting, your desires becoming purified, your personal boundaries strengthening dramatically. You naturally outgrew the deep-seated insecurities that once made you constantly question your inherent worth. And on the other side, they began seeing through the illusions they had once hidden comfortably behind. They started profoundly feeling the internal emptiness of constantly running from their own heart. They learned the undeniable difference between temporary, surface-level comfort and genuinely meaningful, enduring connection. The separation did not weaken the core bond, it significantly elevated it, and that itself is the proof. What breaks easily is purely human. What pauses, endures, and returns exponentially stronger is divine. The divine deliberately pauses what is truly sacred, so that it returns transformed, not simply broken. It strategically delays the blessing so that both souls are capable of handling the immense magnitude of what is being prepared. And right now, whether you can clearly see it or not, the timing is fundamentally shifting. Something in the spiritual atmosphere surrounding your connection is slowly, quietly, yet deliberately aligning. The fifth confirmation is the point where heaven stops merely whispering and begins communicating in undeniable patterns. When a connection is truly divine, the more effort you put into ignoring it, the louder and more frequent the signs become. Initially, you might dismiss it as a coincidence, a random, fleeting thought, a song that suddenly triggers a memory, a quick moment of déjà vu. But then, the distinct patterns quickly grow stronger, dreams become exceptionally vivid, names appear unexpectedly in public. Specific words strike your spirit with surgical precision. It truly feels as if the entire spiritual realm is aligning itself around one singular message. Pay attention. This connection fundamentally matters. A higher power speaks through patterns, especially when the heart is stubbornly refusing to listen, and these divine signs never originate from a place of desperation. They come from masterful orchestration. You might awaken from a dream that feels more like a real conversation than a product of your imagination. You may hear something specific in a sermon, a video, or a casual passing comment that perfectly mirrors the exact situation between you and that person, sometimes word for word. You might see specific repeating numbers at the very instant their face crosses your mind. These are not random signals. These are spiritual breadcrumbs placed carefully along your path, guiding you toward a profound truth that your human logic cannot yet fully grasp. Notice the perfect timing of these signs. They always arrive at the most opportune moment. Just as you are trying to finally let go, something appears that immediately pulls your awareness right back to the center. When you convince yourself that the whole thing was simply in your head, an undeniable event confirms the connection once again. When you start seriously doubting your own intuition, a higher power sends a sign that shakes your doubt to its very core. This is the precise mechanism of divine communication. The timing of the sign carries the most critical part of the message. Heaven speaks when you are on the brink of misinterpreting what it has been trying to show you all along. Dreams become another powerful, essential language the divine uses. These dreams feel significantly different, deeper, clearer, and often almost prophetic in nature. They carry intense emotion, profound revelation, and undeniable clarity. Sometimes you physically see the person, sometimes you simply feel their potent presence, and sometimes you witness powerful symbolic messages that you can't logically interpret. Yet your soul instinctively understands instantly. The dream doesn't leave you feeling confused. It leaves you feeling deeply awakened. It leaves you with a quiet, certain knowing that defies all logical explanation. That is not a mere figment of imagination. That is a visitation, a spiritual encounter purposefully designed to reveal what the physical world cannot show you. And then there are the coincidences, except they are never truly coincidences. You think of them, and suddenly their initials or name pop up unexpectedly. You are about to make a monumental decision that would forever seal the door, and a significant sign immediately interrupts you. You attempt to distract yourself with overwhelming noise, yet somehow everything you hear consistently echoes the same message. The world may label this phenomenon as synchronicity, but the chosen ones know. These intricate patterns originate from a higher, guiding hand. Here is the essential truth that lies hidden behind this particular confirmation. A higher power will never force you into a relationship, but it will also not allow you to misread a divine assignment. Therefore, it persistently repeats the message until the clarity becomes absolutely impossible to ignore. The signs become deeply attached to your spirit because they are an integral part of the script the divine wrote for your ultimate destiny. What continuously shows up is not random. It is profound revelation. It is perfect alignment. It is the divine refusing to allow you to simply walk away from something it intentionally ordained. The sixth confirmation reveals a truth you could never visibly see but have undoubtedly always sensed, a divine unraveling quietly taking place inside the other person. They made a determined effort to move on. They tried their best to bury the connection under a mountain of distractions, routines, noise, casual conversations, and even new faces. They tried sincerely to convince themselves that the bond was temporary, seasonal, something they could simply outgrow. They went to great lengths to act like they didn't feel anything at all. But heaven does not allow chosen ones to forget what it has personally planted. And slowly, without any external warning, the divine begins to gently remove the emotional and spiritual veils, one by one. This profound awakening does not happen all at once. It unfolds in distinct layers. First, they feel a deep restlessness, that subtle internal friction that inevitably arises when the soul knows that something essential is missing from its life. Then, the memories resurface, not as simple nostalgia, but as undeniable truth. A moment you once shared, a specific thing you said, a look they didn't fully understand at the time. Then comes the emotional contrast. They begin to notice that nothing else around them feels as deep, as innately peaceful, or as profoundly familiar as what they once shared with you. They slowly realize they were trying to replace something that is ultimately irreplaceable. And here is where the spiritual intensity truly escalates. The more they resist the feeling, the stronger the truth takes hold inside them. Every time they try to aggressively push the feelings away, they return with an even greater, more startling clarity. Every time they attempt to distract themselves, the divine quietly interrupts their distractions. Every time they try to convince themselves that they simply don't care, their own heart instantly betrays their human logic. This awakening is not a form of punishment. It is pure revelation. A higher power is opening their spiritual eyes to the profound truth that their emotional fears and past immaturity had once completely blinded them from seeing. Initially, they feel utterly confused. They cannot understand why their heart keeps persistently pulling them towards someone they intentionally tried to walk away from. They don't understand why they suddenly feel protective, nostalgic, curious, and intensely emotional about you. They might experience guilt, deep longing, or profound regret. But all of this internal turmoil is a necessary part of the divine breaking. The breaking of deep-seated pride, the breaking of stubborn denial, the breaking of spiritual numbness. A higher power is actively dismantling their internal walls from the inside out, preparing them to finally and authentically recognize your true value without the distorting filters of fear or immaturity. And something even deeper begins to occur. Their soul starts to wake up to the truth that yours already knew instinctively. They begin to sense the connection with a stark clarity that initially frightens them. They start seeing you differently, not as a mere possibility, but as a definite destiny, not as a closed chapter, but as a crucial alignment, not as a fading memory, but as a genuine calling. And that powerful realization begins to transform them quietly, subtly, and consistently. Their conversational patterns shift, their priorities change, their heart becomes notably softer. You continue to appear in their thoughts at the exact moment the divine needs to redirect their spirit. This profound awakening is the fundamental turning point. It unequivocally marks the moment when the connection ceases to be one-sided. It becomes authentically mirrored, reflected, and balanced. Heaven begins the process of pulling both souls toward the same spiritual center, not necessarily at the same instant, but synchronously. They begin to feel what you felt. They begin to question what you questioned. They begin to spiritually crave what you have been yearning for all along. The seventh confirmation is perhaps the most unmistakable sign of all. The precise moment heaven completely removes the fog from your heart and reveals the truth that your spirit has been sensing all along. There arrives a definitive turning point where the deep-seated confusion simply vanishes, almost like a heavy curtain being quickly pulled back after a long, dark night. The crippling doubts that once severely clouded your mind begin to dramatically lose their power. The acute anxiety that once whispered terrifying worst-case scenarios suddenly falls completely silent. The deep fear of being wrong, of being hurt, or of repeating the same old cycles completely dissolves. And in its place, something truly new rises, a profound, quiet clarity. This clarity is not a loud, boisterous declaration. It doesn't arrive with a display of fireworks or intense, overwhelming emotions. It comes gently, steadily, like a slow sunrise that you didn't even notice until the first ray of light warmly touched your skin. It is the moment when your heart finally states, with conviction, this is different. This is from the divine. And when that profound realization fully settles inside you, your entire perspective shifts. You stop trying to aggressively force answers. You stop wrestling internally with the unknown. You stop desperately searching for constant external confirmation because the confirmation has securely moved inward. The core shift is not emotional. It is fundamentally spiritual. This spiritual transformation completely changes the way you view the entire connection. You no longer desperately cling to the hope out of fear. You now stand in quiet, unwavering confidence. You no longer frantically chase after signs. You simply recognize the ones that were already intentionally placed in your path. You no longer worry anxiously about the timing. You begin to authentically trust the process. And this trust doesn't feel like naive, blind hope. It feels like perfect alignment. It feels as though something deep inside you has finally clicked into its rightful place, whispering, I finally understand. When a higher power aligns your heart perfectly with its overarching plan, certainty becomes a unique form of peace that you cannot logically explain, yet you also cannot possibly deny. This profound inner shift also completely transforms how you interpret every single thing that happened before. The old confusion now looks clearly like necessary preparation. The painful separation now looks like brilliant strategy. The difficult silence now looks like divine protection. You begin to truly realize that absolutely nothing about this connection was a waste of time or effort. Every strategic delay, every temporary pause, every unanswered question was a valuable tool a higher power used to shape you spiritually. The ultimate clarity doesn't magically arrive from finally getting what you desire. It comes from becoming who you were meant to be before the blessing of the connection fully manifests. And here is the subtle mystery. When this divine certainty fully awakens in you, something equally profound awakens in them as well. Without a single word being spoken, without seeing each other, without forcing any external action, your spiritual energies begin to perfectly align. It is as if the divine flips an internal spiritual switch that instantly connects two maturing souls at the exact same frequency. And suddenly, the deep-seated fear that once made you question absolutely everything becomes the very thing the divine transforms into an unwavering inner strength. This profound inner shift definitively marks the beginning of the end of doubt. It prepares you for the precise moment when heaven is ready to move visibly, not just spiritually. And just when you assume the journey has settled into simple understanding alone, that is when a higher power reveals the final, crucial piece. That is when your story reaches an inevitable threshold, because after certainty comes the powerful manifestation. The moment the divine story steps fully out of the unseen realm and enters your real, tangible life. Listen closely, because everything you have absorbed in this message has been strategically leading you right here, to the pivotal moment where the truth sinks deeper and more profoundly than any lingering fear. Where your spirit finally fully catches up with the deep wisdom a higher power has been tirelessly whispering to you for so long. A higher power does not place a divine partner into your soul simply to torment you. It does not allow a connection to reach this exceptional depth just to stand by and watch it catastrophically collapse. It does not awaken a love this incredibly profound only to let it slowly die in silence. When heaven purposefully marks two souls with a significant assignment, that bond instantly becomes a powerful instrument, shaping you, stretching your boundaries, maturing your spirit, and healing ancient wounds you didn't even realize were still painfully bleeding. This connection has been actively transforming you from the inside out because heaven has been meticulously preparing you for a profound love that perfectly reflects its own divine nature. Hear me with your deepest spirit when the moment of manifestation arrives, and it will arrive. It won't be wrapped in confusing chaos. It won't be delivered with debilitating fear. It will arrive with a quiet clarity so sharp it cuts through every single doubt you ever entertained. It will arrive with a peace so deep it completely silences every old wound and past regret. It will arrive with perfect alignment, with undeniable purpose, and with a sense of timing that feels utterly supernatural. Because what the divine authors, the divine ultimately finishes. What the divine unites, the divine ultimately strengthens. What the divine assigns, the divine always profoundly protects. You are absolutely not imagining the depth of this connection. You are not exaggerating the power of what you truly feel. If your spirit has been consistently recognizing this person with a deep intensity your mind struggles to explain, it is because heaven recognized them first. Your soul instinctively picked up on the truth that a higher power wrote long before your physical eyes could see the clear external evidence. So, take a deep breath, stay intentionally open, remain firmly grounded, and be genuinely expectant. You are not waiting through this process alone. The divine story is still fully unfolding. The great shift is already profoundly in motion, and the moment the divine has perfectly aligned for you will not pass you by. Now, declare with absolute faith, power, and deep certainty in the comments below, "I trust the signs God reveals to me." Write it boldly, because that powerful declaration is not just mere engagement. It is a sacred agreement with heaven. Your story is not concluding, it is powerfully beginning. And what comes next will undoubtedly change everything.